Back on Vancouver Island. Can't believe the lack of sign for deer. It's crazy. Everything I'm looking at right here is like, it's got big buck written all over it, and there isn't even a game trail. Haven't seen any wolf track or scat. Kind of depressing. No shortage of people driving around, driving around road hunting. I don't know how people do that. Well, I mean, I understand people do that, but a lot of people are physically not capable of running up and down these mountains, but the amount of people that are capable but choose to just drive. I would be interested to know what their success rate is, right? Animals are too smart. It's funny, these elk that I was watching, a group of bull elk I was watching a couple weeks ago up north, where typically a lot of people just rip around in quads, and I come down around a corner and I could see about 1,500 yards away, 1,015. And there's a bachelor group of bull elk absolutely sprinting that far away from me, from the sound of my quad. And when you know that the game does that, when you see guys come quadding into an open area, get off the quad, look around, blow in a bugle, and then turn around and leave after half an hour, well, those elk are typically running way before you even stop your quad, up to 1,000 yards plus away from the sound of your quad. But anyway, what am I babbling about that for? I got some stuff to share here, some people need to be heard. Up at 5 o'clock this morning and videotaped a herd of bachelor Roosevelt bull elk not too far from the house. That was very cool. I think I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow again to make sure I'm there nice and early and see if I can get the best video clips I can. Apparently there's a huge bull there that wasn't there this morning, so I'm going to go back and give that a go tomorrow morning and have a look at him. But anyway, we just heard from the Owl Man again. How I handle the Sabe who came to my home from the Owl Man. Steve, decided to write you again and attempt to help those who have the Sabe lurking around their homes. I'll try to keep this short, but I have to give some background. As I previously mentioned to you before, I purposely sought these beings out after I saw one. I never expected them to seek me out in the sanctuary of my own home, but they did. Let me tell you how this happened and what I did about it. I live in a small parcel of land bordered by reclaimed strip mines. I have an electrical right-of-way behind my home, and about half a mile at the end of that right-of-way is a river. I live semi-rural, and this right-of-way is more or less a giant game trail for the wildlife that lives here. I never thought these beings would find my home, and never thought they would use this right-of-way. I was sadly mistaken. I have a large garden outside of my fence along my property line bordering this right-of-way. I grow a variety of vegetables, especially hot peppers. Inside my fenced yard, I have an 8,000-gallon raised pond made out of landscaping timbers. It's a large structure that is 18 foot square and 4 feet high, making the water 3 feet deep. About 15 feet from the pond, I had a picnic table where I kept two 50-gallon plastic horse troughs. At the time, I had several different species of exotic water turtles that I breed and sell. The majority of them were in this large pond. I had to keep single male European pond turtles in each tub. The males are aggressive towards each other, and they would drown the females if they were placed in the pond. I also had a large flight cage with a pigeon loft attached to the house to house racing pigeons. I also had 3 small dogs at the time, and they would come and go outside as they pleased via a door that I never locked. I tell you this to set the stage as to what was soon to happen. This took place in the late summer 2013 or 14. It was a few weeks after I discovered that these beings can communicate through mind speak. There were 2 weeks that myself and my 2 close friends spent those nights traveling a 50 or more mile radius looking for these beings. Like you, I can feel the so-called pressure, and one of these friends could as well. She discovered she had the ability to mind speak extremely well. We'd travel around till we would pick up on that pressure and use it like radar to locate an individual or a group of them. All this would be a story in and of itself. At the end of the night, I would head back home, usually around 3 a.m. I know this may sound bizarre to most of your listeners, but it was quite an adventure and deserves its own chapter in a book. Just a short time prior to these few weeks, I started to notice some strange things around my place. They first began in the garden. I've been gardening for over 30 years. I know what garden pests to look for and the sign they leave. I began to find jalapenos that were picked right off the plant. bitten in half and left on the ground. I was rather dumbstruck to that. Then I would find tomatoes that I picked and placed on my fence post missing overnight. I have a wooden fence, and on the fence post I attached a small square pieces of plywood. On each one I would place tomatoes to ripen up or collect later. Sometimes I'd find the tomatoes moved to other posts that didn't have any on them. That was pretty weird. The thing that really made me go over the edge was the turtles in the horse trough. Like I mentioned, I kept two 50-gallon tubs on a picnic table. Each one had a cement block in it for the turtle to bask on. Each tub had a hardware cloth lid I had made for it. They could not crawl out of these tubs. I just didn't want any getting in. One morning I went out to do my morning chores of feeding all the animals, and one of these tubs has a missing turtle. The wire lid was off, and I was not sure if I had forgotten to put it back on, or did something remove it. The turtle in this one tub was definitely gone. I knew it could not have crawled out. I theorized that I forgot to place the wire lid back on, and the local great horned owl grabbed him as he slept on the rock at night, which he often did. I was rather pissed off about it, considering that turtle cost me $150 when it was just the size of a quarter, and it took 8 years to reach sexual maturity. Holy shit. A few days later I was hand feeding the other turtles in a raised pond. This day I was feeding them all by hand, and each individual would come up and take some food. Guess who comes up to take some food? The missing turtle. Now I was really confused. There's no possible way this animal would escape its tub and crawl 15 feet to a 4-foot high vertical wall and go straight up and drop himself into the water. I know these animals really well, and I designed their enclosures to prevent this sort of thing. The only thing I could figure was an owl grabbed him out of his tub, and as it flew, it accidentally dropped him in the pond. Then one of my dogs began to behave strangely. Like I said, I had 3 small dogs this time. It was not unusual for them to go out at night through the dog door, but they never lingered or got worked up over anything. It was my rat terrier who really began to go off the rails. She was a living terror to anything she thought she could kill. Rodents, skunks, and raccoons. You understand how to read a dog's bark. She had a different bark for everything. She would go out late at night and bark her fool head off. The kind of bark a dog has for someone it doesn't know. And it was never an aggressive, I want to kill you bark. Just the bark she used when she heard a knock at the front door, a person she did not recognize. It drove me crazy. She would wake me up, wouldn't listen, and I would have to go outside and physically pick her up and bring her back in the house. She was always in the northeast corner of the yard doing this. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Then there was this missing pigeon. Now, it's not uncommon to have predators take pigeons when you let them out to fly. This was different. I'd remove 3 pigeons from my main flock and place them in a small cage that stood 6 feet off the ground. It was more like a large rabbit hutch. Once again, I go out in the morning to feed everyone, and 1 pigeon in this cage is gone. No trace of it anywhere. In order to get this cage, you have to squeeze the latch with your thumb and index finger. You can't unlock it or lock it without using those 2 digits. I began to think I had some type of mischievous kid coming around at night, or I was at first stage dementia. Did I actually have 3 pigeons in that cage or just 2? Now remember, these things were happening just around the time I discovered the whole mind-speaking thing, and before myself and my friends went on these nightly excursions. This is how it all came to a head. Towards the end of the 2 weeks of nightly excursions, which involved the surrounding state to my east, I began to feel that pressure as I got closer to my home. I was not very happy about that. It was then I figured at least one of them was now skulking around my neighborhood. So one night after I'd returned home, I was at my desktop in my bedroom working on something before bed. My room was on the 1st floor. The window was only a few feet off the ground. As I was typing away, when something slammed against the window. Now this window is an 8-foot-long bay window, and whatever slammed into it was on the window pane closest to my desk about 4 inches away. It sounded like a robin-sized bird smashed into it. You ever had a dove, pigeon, or robin fly into your windshield as you were driving? That's what it sounded like. It freaked the hell out. I freaked the hell out. That pressure I was feeling for the past few days prior to this was there, and I knew it was them. So this is what I did. I went out into my backyard and spoke into the darkness. I know who you are. I don't know how you found me, but I'm not a threat to you or your people. Sorry guys, had a little bit of a camera mishap, so I got to do a little bit of filler in here. Alright? I went out in my backyard and spoke into the darkness.
I know who you are. I don't know how you found me, but I'm not a threat to you or your people. Please come back tomorrow around this time so we can speak. I then called up my female friend and told her what transpired. I told her to come to my place tomorrow evening so we could have a proper conversation with this individual because I need to lay some ground rules. I do not know if this individual, Sabe, was malevolent or not. It was at that moment all the incidents I just mentioned came together in my head. They've been messing around my place in subtle ways, and now I was worried my animals were going to be killed and things were going to get destroyed. The next evening, my friend came over before sundown. We actually went across the street and spent time with my neighbor, who somehow always had an eerie feeling in the neighborhood at times. I had to explain to her what was causing that. She had no issue believing me because I have openly discussed the subject with her and her husband for years. I just had to explain how things moved in high strangeness. About 10 p.m., myself and my friend could tell that the Sabes had entered the neighborhood.
So we left my neighbor and headed back into my yard. At the back of the right-of-way was a tree line of large cottonwoods and box elder. Next to the largest cottonwood, about 8 feet up, was a set of self-illuminating eyes, a cool white/bluish color, kind of like a low-level LED. He was tall and dark, and that was about all I could make of him. Behind that tree line is a steep embankment thick with Japanese honeysuckle. He was standing on the other side of the right-of-way, and we were directly across from him. I can't tell you how far that is, maybe 100 feet. And this is how it transpired. I looked at him and introduced myself formally out loud with my voice. Greetings. Thank you for coming back to my home to speak with me. I then introduced him to my female friend. This is my friend. Your people know her as, they have a name for her. I asked her to come meet with you so we can speak. This Sabe introduced himself through mind speak. He told us his name. He went on to tell us that he does not live close by, but he does travel this way often. He went on to explain that he began to sense what he thought was one of his people in this area that he did not recognize and came to investigate. To his surprise, it was me. My friend and I explained to him that we had a connection to his people and we had begun to name drop individuals, hoping he may know one of them. He didn't. I explained the general area these other Sabe lived through compass direction and landmarks. He knew of the area, but not the individuals he had mentioned. He commented on how much he liked to listen to the waterfall in my pond, and he was particularly fond of my rat terrier. He described her by color. He didn't know her by name. I told her name was Jax. He said he would come and see her, but she would not let him pet her, which is typical of Jax the stranger. I replied to him, I thought your people hate dogs. His answer was simple, most of us don't. It just depends on the dog. I told him I don't mind him coming here, but please do not kill anything. He found that amusing. I explained to him that all the things that had happened, the turtle, the garden, the missing pigeon, he apologized and insisted it was not him, but he suspected it was another who occasionally gets away from the watchful eyes of the others, and he would make sure this would not happen again. Apparently they had an individual who, for lack of a better word, was born with a learning disability. I think the politically correct term would be a little slow. From what my friend and I could gather about this troublesome individual, he was born like this, and we suspect he also had either diabetes or hypoglycemia. He was always in the garbage can with an unending appetite. I then set the ground rules. I told him he and his people are welcome here as long as they don't bang in the house, damage, or kill anything. I told him they could take anything they wish from the garden as long as I left it on the fence. He did confess to having bitten the jalapenos and wanted to know why they would taste like that. This is really hard to explain. He said he would make sure he would tell his people these things and promised to keep his word. We said our goodbyes and called it an evening, but it didn't end there. 2 nights later, about 2 a.m., my dog Jax went ape shit and out the dog door. She went. As I got out of bed, I could feel that pressure you speak of, and I knew right away there was a Sabe nearby, so I grabbed one of my Native American flutes and went out onto my back porch once again trying to get the dog in. Except this time she was not in the corner of the yard, but directly to the east side behind a very large juniper bush that hides my deck from the neighbors to my east. I managed to get the dog in the house and put her away. I spoke into the darkness. Greetings, I know you are here. This is the first time I had one of these beings speak to me with an audible voice. He was directly behind this large juniper bush, out of sight on the northeastern corner of my house, or in the shadow of my neighbor's house that was vacant at the time. There were no lights on anywhere. He spoke out into the darkness, not in English. Like I've mentioned previously, it sounds like John Belushi doing his samurai warrior character from Saturday Night Live. The voice was deep, clear, guttural, yet distinctive. I could tell he spoke in a complete sentence. We as humans can recognize a sentence even if we don't understand the language. I told him I couldn't understand him, but I had a gift for him. So I played a song on my flute. When I finished, I said to him, "Go in peace and may the great Creator go with you." I then went back into the house and closed the door and went back to bed. Rather shocked, I might say, yes. I'm not afraid of them, despite how surprising this incident was. About 6 a.m., I was woken up with a phone call from my female friend who helped me with this individual a few nights prior. She says to me, "I heard you had a visitor last night." I was really surprised. "How did you know?" She replies, "He woke me up at first light to tell me that he came by to speak with you, but you can't communicate with him like I do. He didn't realize that." She went on to inform me that he managed to track down one of the individual Sabes that I name-dropped and verified everything we had told him. Steve, that Sasquatch, vetted me. As I stated, this was several years ago and I had never had any issues since. I still leave produce from the garden on the fence and sometimes it's gone. I'll sometimes find an uncommon feather in a strange but obvious place at times, like at my doorstep or on the driver's side of my truck. About a week ago, I had a tail feather from a red-bellied woodpecker at the side door entrance for my garage. I used that door more than any other. I can say this. After that night, I no longer seem to have any predator issues with raccoons. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. I know this is a long email, and I apologize for that. The overall message here is for the people who have them around your home, messing around, try to contain your fear. When you know they're outside, go outside and speak to them. Do it slowly and use simple words. Do not speak in fear or anger. You can be stern. Tell them you don't want your children to be afraid. You don't want the dogs, chickens, livestock killed or harmed, or the roof or house damaged. Whatever you need to feel secure about, tell them. I keep informing people that their behaviors are more like kids with autism, so you have to approach them like that. There's always the chance you could be dealing with a criminal element, but don't assume that right off the bat. Try reaching out to them in a respectful manner first and see how it goes from there. In all my dealings with them, I have found the vast majority of them to be reasonable. If someone can't deal with this, and go ahead and buy cameras and motion sensor lights. Even if you go this route, tell them about those lights and the cameras once they're up and why you're doing that. I know the critics are going to call everything I just explained as delusional. I don't give a rat's ass. I know what I know, and the best part is, none of this is a secret to anyone who knows me. Most of them are unbelieving. They all know I am not bullshitting because long ago I proved to my closest friends that this stuff is real. Most of them are terrified to go in the woods now unless I go with them. I hope this is of some help to you and those who are listening. It is a really hard thing for us to overcome the fear once they show up at your home. But it is your home. You have to let them know that your space is yours, just as their home is theirs. It is better to work with a neighbor than to be at war with them. Like it or not, once you are on their radar, you can't escape them. But that doesn't mean you have to live your life in fear of them. One last thing, in case you have noticed. Those researchers who run around the woods with groups of people knocking on trees, screaming and howling, they never seem to experience this sort of thing. There is a reason for that. Individuals know that they are there to get their attention. Those who don't react in typical human fashion get followed home and messed with. That is an important thing. Once you continually expose yourself to them, knowing they are there, you run the risk of them tagging you. I don't know if you can prevent this. Once you have acknowledged them in a peaceful, respectful way, they're going to want to know why you are so different from the rest of our kind. Give them a reason to respect you back. Try to remember you are dealing with a people whose brains seem to process things as an autistic person does. They show up around me if I spend any time in places where they are. I can't stop that. I've been shocked at some of the places they show up at. I just acknowledge their presence, explain why I'm there, and go about my business as if they were not there. What choice do you have? Truth is, they are real. They are there. You just go about your life and live with it. Once again, I would rather walk through the woods filled with them in the dark than walk through some of our cities in broad daylight. Peace to you and yours, Owlman. Yeah, man, I can totally relate to that last statement. Man, I've been to some places in the States outside big cities that scared the absolute shit out of me. I would rather be out here in the pitch black as well, for sure. There's definitely a bunch of, that's a lot for your average person just coming here out of being curious in this channel, Owl Man. That's a lot for your average human being who's not familiar with this topic to take in and chew on, right? For me, you had my attention the whole time, and I absolutely thank you for sharing that knowledge with everybody, because we both know there is a pile of people out there who have the same similar things going on in their properties. And it's caused a lot of people to sell their homes. People I've spoke with who had to sell their dream properties because of this shit, this topic, these experiences. The tagging thing, that's obvious, that's fact. It's been talked about by how many people now? People that aren't connected with each other in any way. That's a fact. And for me too, to observe so many people going out there banging in the streets at night and acting like idiots, I just cannot believe why anyone would throw the dice and gamble, absolutely changing their home life for good, no matter where they possibly move to, right? Because of that. The pressure. Yeah, right over top of this hill is where I had those rocks thrown at me over a month ago, but I didn't share any of that with you guys until what, just this week. Out there over that hill is the direction towards Mint Lake, and I felt pressure there as a young boy. Didn't know what I was feeling, and I felt absolute pressure there when I was there filming with the drone. I filmed the lake. Remember that? I felt pressure there then, but I'm gonna go back there. I'm gonna go on that lake and check out that old cabin. Pressure, no pressure. I'm gonna go check it out, but I'm gonna go there just to see the cabin, not to look for these beings, right? And I'll make that clear when I go there. And yeah, I don't know if Sarah's gonna want to come on the camera and tell us what happened while I was away. Right away at nighttime, she started sharing with me that some weird things are starting to happen on her property, some banging. We also heard banging on the house high up on the wall when we first moved in. I just didn't share it here. The dog was jumping off the bed, running down, growling at the door nonstop. I've never seen the dog do that ever. The motion light kept on going, getting triggered in the backyard. And she said she was laying in bed, paralyzed with fear. That's a quote. One night, and it was late at night too. And then as soon as her mom came out, it stopped. And you know, just so you guys know, I have some very close, very A-type friends living very close to my home. We're very, very well armed and only a touch of a button away, just so you guys know, all right? But everything seems to be cool so far. There's no more anything going on, but as you guys know, I don't seek these beings out, ever. I'm definitely in the same place as they are. 3/4 of the time of my life is what it is. I mind my own business, and for the most part, they mind theirs, but I know I got a photograph of one of them on the river out back, and I've had things thrown at me a few times lately too, but I don't see that as life-threatening. It's not scaring me too bad, but it's definitely not fun. But anyway, there you go. There's a bunch of information, generous information and time spent from the Owl Man writing to share with all you. Take from it what you will or leave it, but I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of you people out there sitting in the background silent who are taking in those words, and you're going to apply those words to what's going on your rural property, aren't you? I put money down that's going on. Big money. But anyway. This camera's dying, so I'm gonna get some more shares out again. I'm gonna go to a different spot. I might be able to get higher up there and get another camera out and see if I can get a bunch more emails shared with you guys before I go home. But be safe out there, you guys. hearing the impact.